It's Big Venus energy. I'm Lo, and I'm here with Sharda, and we're here to get into it.
Let's get into it. We are in the midst of spring.
It is the vernal equinox today. Hello, Aries season. This is big moving forward energy.
You just saw my armpits.
There's some very sticky astrology right now.
How do you define sticky astrology?
Okay, so we just entered, we have 3 big conjunctions that are happening, or exact kind of transits that are happening this week.
Okay.
And some of them kind of border sensitivity. One of them is today, actually, and it has to do with Mercury and I think Saturn. I could be wrong. No, maybe it's Neptune and Mercury.
Hey, it's okay if we get certain things wrong. We are not claiming to be experts in stuff.
We do a lot of things. Today's been an active day. But it said that maybe, and we're going through eclipse season, so we have an eclipse coming up soon. I think there's a lunar eclipse this next week, and then we have a full solar eclipse in the first 10 days of April, and we're going to be able to see it here, a solar eclipse.
I'm
so
not
you need
here.
your glasses. Oh.
I'm traveling to Bali.
Okay, but
hurry and
yes, do they have the glasses?
I do not know. I gotta go find out.
I'm going to prepare you for the eclipse because it's spectacular.
Why don't you come and hang out with these guys? But you know what? AJ School is doing an eclipse watching thingy too.
Amazing.
I know. I think it's really good to expose the kids to, the aspects of with education in children. It's very interesting nowadays. We talk about, hey, what we think they should understand versus what they do understand and what they think is important. If you start talking to them about the, educational aspects behind it, then the narrative aspects behind it, then they lose the beauty of the experiential aspect behind it. Right? So they have to experience it. We have not prepared yet. So.
Were you here for the one in the fall?
I don't remember.
Winter? Okay, I don't remember what day it was. But there was.
But it was not last
when it was cold. Yeah.
But it was not this winter. It was probably the previous.
No.
It was this winter.
Yeah, I still have the glasses.
Oh.
Pictures. And it was really cool because we had to go to 3 different gas stations to find these movie. Remember the
3D movie.
Yeah, the paper
glasses.
glasses.
Yeah.
And they kind of price gouged us. We ordered a bunch more so we can pass them out to the neighborhood because we were outside and there were some friends in the neighborhood that I was riding bikes with. And they all came over to the driveway because we all had glasses and we passed them to each other to look at it. And then our neighbors next to us, we shared with them. They're new to the neighborhood. And they were using the paper method. So you take a piece of paper.
You put a hole in it.
Yes, and then you hold it up.
Yep.
Okay, and so we taught all of the kids in the neighborhood that and kind of all hung out on the block and watched the eclipse together. It was special. And then to see the crescents on the sidewalk, the sun shining through the leaves.
Yes.
It's really magical.
Yeah.
It's really fun getting to tell kids to look at something, but they can only use glasses because it'll hurt their retinas to stare at the sun. It's such a great exercise in impulse control.
Yes, it's tough. How do you do it without scaring the bejesus out of them? Right? Because fear of consequence, fear of getting into trouble, fear of pain. How do you teach them? Hey, it's not the trouble you will get in with me. It is me trying to share wisdom with you. My kid is going to turn 13.
Right.
Your kid, even at the age of 9 and 10, I think she's turning 10. She's 10. They are very smart. And I'm very proud of the kind of parenting we do because we give them space to ask us questions, push back, talk their feelings out, give them space to make choices and all of that kind of stuff. But with that comes at an early age, and I'm talking about them at this age as early age, the overconfidence in their decision making. Not that I have confidence all the time in my own decision making, but
my approach to that, with anything pertaining to it's not me you're gonna get in trouble with, it's the natural consequences.
Yes.
Is I very explicitly explain the processes of the body
Mm-hmm.
and the results, right? And that's how I've really tried to parent, because it's not just because I say so, and you can look it up yourself.
Yeah.
You
Isn't
know?
it fantastic about Google?
Yes. And books. So I've always tried to tell Ari, you can't trust everything you read on the internet. It's really interesting trying to find credible sources.
Yes.
Right? Because that was something we learned in English. Whenever you write a paper, you got to find reliable resources.
Correct.
And I teach her how to look for things at the library.
Yep.
And so it's a lot of fun. But as a parent, my first line of defense was to teach my daughter about her body and her brain and how all the small decisions you make, like eating a cookie first thing in the morning. I know it sounds like a really good idea because that's what your tummy and your brain says.
Yes.
But what it actually means for your day.
Oh, 100%. I learned something recently. I think we talked about this between the two of us. I don't know whether we talked about it on an episode, but from the time you're born to when you grow old, you're actually, what's happening to your body and your muscles is actually called gylation, which is actually cooking.
Yeah.
You're cooking from the inside.
Absolutely.
Okay? You're constantly cooking from the inside. Like, I don't cook meat. I'm a vegetarian, but I do know what cooked meat looks like because I love cooking shows. Okay? I can even give you recipes for meat, even though I don't cook meat, right? So you're cooking, so that turning of the color, like from the light pink to it becoming the brown and the cooked thing, that's what happens to our bodies when you're baby to when you're really old. You look at the muscles inside, it's cooked. And what I learned was sugar speeds up cooking.
Yes.
And nowadays, I try very hard to not eat sugar in the mornings. This is when I say nowadays, it's literally very, very new. Like in a month and a half, I learned this. Eating sugar in the morning, especially breakfast, cooks your body faster.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
So cereal, sugary drinks.
Every single breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, not all breakfast. Savory breakfast, yeah, okay.
Well, I mean, some of them, when you look at the traditional American breakfast, it's high cholesterol.
Yeah.
And high sodium.
And high sugar.
Yes. Well, so those are your options. So the savory options are high sodium, and you have high sugar on the other end, which is like pastries. Even bagels are high in sugar now.
Cereal, guys, don't just do cereal for your
please
kids.
Don't. And cold too. So all of my nutrition studies say that you should eat something warm in the morning, drinking warm waters, right? Because in that hour, your body is still awakening and warming itself up.
Yes.
And so, oatmeals, as much as they're not as appealing, are really great for you if you add different seeds to them. I prefer mine with chia seeds because it gives it a texture.
Crunch. Yeah.
I'm
not a fan of the sliminess. I tried even the I definitely don't like the cooked oatmeal. I like the overnight soaked one. It feels like slimy.
Yeah.
But I think we all have our different preferences, and I think I like certain textures more than the other. I will go any single day. Eggs.
Yeah.
I eat eggs. I'm a vegetarian. I do eat dairy products, and I know you don't. But for me, I can do eggs morning, noon, and night.
So there's been a lot of advancements, but I've also learned a lot that if you use a food processor and you grind moon lentil. And you blend it, process it, powder it, add some turmeric and black salt.
Y'all, she just gave you a vegan egg option.
Yes.
What?
If you don't,
and lentils are very protein rich.
They are so good for you. I love lentils so much. But there are also a lot of advancements in the vegan world. They now have these things called Wonder Eggs, and they're made out of nuts. And it's eerie and uncanny how much like a boiled egg it is.
Wow. Do you do soft silken tofu and scramble it like eggs?
I need to get better at tofu. Admittedly, I'm only on the extra firm level. I want to.
But the scrambled tofus are really good.
Yes.
I've tried it. I've also tried the silken tofu in When I say I've tried it, I've literally tried eating it, not tried cooking it.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to be clear. I've cooked scrambled tofu once. Delicious. My mom doesn't do
Tofu
eggs.
scramble.
She just doesn't like the texture of it. She likes her cakes and whatnot, but she doesn't like the taste of eggs. But a friend of mine, she's a vegan, and she did quiche with onions and shallots and garlic and ginger and
tofu?
yes, and it was so good. We didn't even know it was tofu. It was so tasty.
I'm looking that recipe up.
Yes, I will ask Neha and I'll let you
Yes,
know.
please send it to me. I need it. Because I love quiche.
Yeah,
I grew up in
my
like
God.
tea houses.
Yes.
So I would go to tea parties where you wear the gloves and you have all the fancy, and the hats. Or if you didn't have them, they let you borrow them at the shops, and you have the fancy teacups and the little
Trays with baby food.
the pastries, little tiers,
Yeah.
you know, and the little sandwiches.
Yes.
I also have questions. Have you ever had a pimento cheese sandwich?
I have. It's okay.
It's weird.
Yeah, it totally is. I'm not a fan of pimento cheese.
Don't understand it, but I remember them.
But there are lots of weird ass foods out there. Apparently, I just literally learned this very, very, very recently. I'm an Indian. I should know a little bit more about Indian food, but because I'm a vegetarian, you know, there are certain types I have obviously not explored.
Okay.
Right? Apparently, there is a powdered ant something from India.
Okay.
That's supposedly like super delish and super like, I'm like,
Are we
whoa!
using it like flour or like a seasoning?
No, it's almost like a spice powder
Okay,
sauce
so it's
that
like
you can.
a...
Yeah, thingy. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, guys, lots of ants out there.
Okay, I watched a video years ago now.
I don't know. I don't feel too bad about killing an ant. I just have to say, I won't eat it, but I'm just saying. You have lots of ants out there.
I mean,
but
I think if you had to eat a bug, ants would be the easiest to get.
right.
There's not as much squish.
Correct. It's got crunch.
Yeah.
They say the same thing with crickets, but I don't know. Its size seems like a little too much for me.
Okay, we're gonna preface this statement. Crickets are the only bug that when they die, they smell bad.
Ooh. But I still can't eat living items, living animals kind of thing.
So I watched a video, like I said, years ago, and it's talking about the effects of global climate change. And eventually, there's going to be I don't want to scare everybody, it's going to be really hard to get food to grow as it gets warmer. And winters become shorter. It's going to change our soil.
So you're going to have harsher summers, harsher winters, and the temperate climates are squeezing down in the middle.
Yes.
Which is so when you look at harvest season, right, you grow during those temperate climates, and you are harvesting before it gets really, really harsh over the summer. And so that kind of cycle happens, and you harvest again at the beginning of the winter. But if winters are long and summers are long and your temperature is short, the time to grow those vegetables becomes, or any kind of crops becomes
and it
short.
shifts and it becomes early and earlier. So we're going to be really adaptable.
Yes.
In this really extreme version of events, this woman was talking about how you can use crickets and grind them into a flour, and it has a nutty flavor. And she's like, I even have a recipe for cricket chocolate chip cookies. And I'm like, I'm gonna pass. Because
for a second when you said, I thought you were gonna say, I'm gonna go for it. I did not expect you to say, your enthusiasm to say, I'm gonna.
You can keep it. I'm so happy for you. A+ for innovation and like using your resources. Super creative. I don't know if you've ever been around gas stations in the summertime here in Texas.
Yes.
You will see, it's almost like a barrier. It's like a natural sprinkle onto the concrete outside, but like inches of just cricket bodies.
Yes. So, before we transition to serious topics that we were going to talk about, can I see your beautiful eyeshadow that you just done today? Can you remove the...
There you go.
You're going from yellow to orange to pink to, oh my god, gorgeousness, y'all. She's just done this almost like with the eyeshadow, a mask of sorts.
Yes.
Gorgeous.
Thank you. I did it's very dark green for the wings.
Oh, I see it. I had to come a little closer.
Yes.
I'm a little blind.
It's okay.
So you start
It's
with the
subtle.
orange, went to the yellow, and taken to the pink, and you blended the whole thing. It's
Yes. Yes. I felt creative today.
Mm-hmm.
It's Wednesday. It's mercurial. It's
Mm.
it's a special day, so I wanted to
Yeah,
spice it up a little.
you got this special person who just came back from wherever. And
Yes. Well, you helped out a lot today and a lot of people, and you always are very colorful. So
Well, it's okay.
I felt bad, but I had planned this. I wanted to tell you this morning. I was gonna dress up, just because it's Big Venus energy, and if you guys haven't found us on Instagram, we're now there.
You're gonna start posting some snippets on Insta.
Yes.
Slowly to TikTok. Yes. You know, hopefully we are able to see our words that we say and we start using them as our posts out there. But I'm seeing your evolution of your pictures to your words. You know, you slowly transition. Even in the last 3 posts, you slowly transition to making sure the background is not overwhelming the words. And you're like, I love this last post that you did. It was beautiful. Gorgeous.
And that's it. That's really what it's going to take for me is
experimentation.
Growing. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that was the big, the post or reel that I made for Big Venus Energy yesterday kind of talked about that. Is seeds have to come completely undone to sprout and to bloom, and to some people that looks a little bit like, destruction if you don't know what growth looks like, and we're here to grow. And for the last 9 months, I would say for me personally is I was stretched really thin. I didn't have the energy to step into it as much as I wanted to, and I really struggled with that, and reflected with that, because Big Venus energy to me was a love child and a culmination of my passion and my studies, and to meet you, and you match that passion and like outspoken nature that really embodies it and really brings it out of me. And so when I've been watching all of our episodes and noticing different things that we could be doing together, it's been really hard to admit those things to yourself. Like constructive criticism and being brave enough to take it and roll with it is a huge growth and leap for people.
I think we all need to stop criticizing ourselves and each other, right? Yes. Reflective feedback is better than criticism at any given time. I mean, I was watching a couple of episodes of ours, especially with Hari, and I loved listening to your voice.
Thank you.
Your voice carries so beautifully. The way you speak is wonderful. Like I know how I speak, especially when you reflect back and listen to it. I'm like, okay, you pause a lot, or you go really fast for myself, right? And I have this very gravelly element to my voice. Yours is just so soft flowing. And it's just nice though in a juxtaposition of sorts. But Hari was like, your vibe, you guys are really nice vibey, but Lauren is like amazing. And I'm like, I know, she's so...
You flatter me and honor me. I feel that way about you. So when I watch the episodes, I try not to cringe at myself. And that's
self-critical.
Yeah, that's what it is. And
tough.
I am really excited that this season has brought me like a renewed trusting the process, and kind of this attitude of like, nothing can improve if I don't even start.
But taking the time for, first and foremost, giving you time to reset is so necessary.
Absolutely.
Because you've been going, all of us like tend to go, and we think we are not being productive if we take some time for ourselves, and especially when there is elements that we feel are broken inside. Oof. Right? We are self-critical of the fact that how can you be broken? The world needs you, your kid needs you, you need to be always adding value, you need to, that kind of pressure is a lot.
So I spend a lot of time in my kind of journey through the shadows is what I call it, and I do a lot of shadow work. And And to me, that helps me be really comfortable and really compassionate with myself and trusting myself. It's been a healing journey. But when I use the word broken, even heartbroken, I like to add open. So breaking is just the expansion of you, because when you put it back together, you have a little more give, you have a little more stretch, you have a little more understanding, right? Because we are in this paradoxical kind of world and existence, you know, the good and bad, the binary, even our binary code underlies the language of the universe. There has to be that. And in our experiences, we have those, and it gives us so much more humanity and so much more compassion, not only for ourselves, but for everyone around us. And I'm really grateful to have reframed that in my own mind. Like, I'm breaking open. I'm becoming something more now. And it's really transformative energy, and it's energy we need to exist right now, because stuff is really dire.
It is very, there's one thing I want to talk about when we talk about broken, okay? I forget what the word is. I don't know whether it's satsuki or something like that in Japanese.
With the gold.
Correct. So pieces of a vase or something is broken, right? They put it together with molten gold and pull it together. Apparently, that not only makes the whole thing stronger and beautiful, but therefore more valuable, because you've restored it, but you brought in elements that are vibrant and yet deeper strength. Why? Ceramic can break.
Yes.
Right? That evolution, and I saw this actually, the first time I learned about this, while I had seen vases like that or whatever, I learned about it in the movie called Pathan. It's an Indian movie. Pathan, and I'm like, oh, this is beautiful. And then I remembered my wall with this thing, and I'm like, it sort of reminds me of this a little bit.
Absolutely.
And you talking about, breaking to open, yes, that gives you the opportunity to then reshape ourselves if need be to where our next evolution is.
It's important, because we're constantly evolving. You know, we shed skin cells, our cells inside of us are regenerating constantly. And I think it's just really cool. You know, we all hear the saying, as above, so below, as within, so without. And we really, when you pay attention, so many of the same patterns just play out. And one more thing before we move on to current events is I heard something really wise in the last week about, we're never going to go back to the way we were, and that's why the spiral happens the way it is. Like, we might be going through similar cycles or similar patterns, but we're moving out and away from them. We're never back in the same place. And I thought that was really special to consider. You know, we talk sometimes about a setback. No, we're just kind of back around that corner in a different spot now, because we know what happened like last time. We're more informed. And with that being said, we are more informed right now, more than ever. And it's overwhelming.
It is. And we put so much pressure on ourselves to be more informed. And if we are not informed, we feel guilt. We feel shamed. Like, I am usually not one to be as informed about all aspects of politics or foreign affairs all the time, because it's just so much. And in all honesty, everybody's interest levels are different. Right? So if you ask me, who are the senators in Texas, I'm not gonna know.
I don't know if you.
I only know about the Governor Abbott only because he's made so much news, all in the wrong way. Right? But however, there are certain things that we cannot not see.
Right.
People talk about the dire states of poverty and diseases that plague places in Africa like Somalia, that have wars that have been going on for years in Sudan and Venezuela in South America, in Bangladesh, in Bhutan, and in aspects of South Asia. But what often gets even more, immediate, more focus, more attention is when those atrocities happen to light-colored skin. Right? Atrocious, and by no means taking away the atrociousness that is happening in Gaza-Palestine borders, okay? Dire situations with food storage, dire situations with camps, dire situations with refugees, children with no parents now. However, for me, I am not taking anything away from any of those things. It just, when I start looking at it in a pattern, I find the pattern for value for life when you are more fair-skinned higher than a lowered value when your skin is darker.
And that's been how white supremacy has worked. Ethnocentric states, kind of like the ones we're seeing right now, have had overreaching power to destabilize different governments on purpose, because when you look at the root causes of a lot of these things, it's about resource extraction and control, which is directly related to the level of capitalism we're operating under. And I think this is where we start to blur the lines. Because when we talk about politics and where people stand in politics, you get a lot of people that feel really comfortable about standing behind being fiscally conservative. And when you start talking about being fiscally conservative, they're also very profit driven. And so what gives us power as people with resources and privileged people is that we get to really start to investigate the trail, right? Where is our money contributing to some of these things that are happening? Recently, I made a hashtag that said boycotts work, and there's one it's existed, but I was able to click on it. And we're starting to see that when we speak with our money, when we start investing in more responsibly sourced things, we start to divest from those companies and those powers and those incentives to continue to destabilize indigenous communities and marginalized communities, because there's no benefit anymore, because we're not tolerating it. They're not benefiting from our ignorance. They're not benefiting from us relying on just convenience. We should allow ourselves to be inconvenienced enough to be informed. Like when we talk about technology, the Congo right now is experiencing really devastating famines, massacres, genocide, and it's all in the name of cobalt, which is in vape pens, which is in all of our phones, and we don't sit there and question that. We don't sit there and think about the effects of it because we're so far removed from it. And because media is really largely controlled by a few certain companies, what's allowed to be printed, kind of why we're about to lose our access to TikTok is because they can't control that information coming. They don't get to set the narrative. Right?
And which is is talking about control, is all power and control driven. Money is just a pawn in it, right? Yes, we created it as a currency. My husband and I were talking about this very, very recently. When I say very, very recently, I think it was yesterday evening we were talking about this. Human civilization, we were very, very, very small communities and villages that would be self-sustaining by itself, right? Because we didn't have think about, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, let's talk about 1,000 years plus, right? Small communities, you didn't know what was happening in another community. It was very hard to go out. You could be eaten by whatever, you could be hit by whatever, you know. So you would try to be as self-sustaining as possible. But as you grow bigger and bigger, you started exploring, whether it was through land or whatever, right? And it came from the premise of, I want to protect my community and my tribe, and I want to provide for my community and my tribe. Those were the two things: protect and provide. Protect meant, it took from defense to offense. Provide went from self-sustaining to plundering.
Because of the trade markets, right? Because we started noticing when other people had things we didn't.
Correct. Trades didn't even have started until we started going, oh, I see that piece of land that had those kind of plants that I don't have. I'm going to go take it. But that actually belonged to a different tribe. There was no trade. That came much later. So the I don't want to say good or bad. The kind, again, I hate such language, right? The ones that were not violence driven, okay, were getting into barter system. We have this, you have this, let's exchange, right? The ones that felt they wanted it no matter how they got it went through power and control. Right. They invaded, they conquered, they slaughtered, they fear-based, right? That has proliferated and still tremendously exists in this world.
Call it imperialism?
Totally, right? And now money is just another tool to make it happen. Right. Whether it is building weapons, whether it is invading through bombs and drones and whatever those things are, manipulation of the financial markets.
Absolutely.
Right? It is only grown. We are 8 billion people. We're no longer, 800,000 people on Earth.
Yeah, rapid expansion. It's hard to talk about knowing what we know now, right? So I don't want to say grateful. I'm grateful for the awareness of understanding how far-reaching occupations are. So they're not as violent now, but I mean, they kind of are. When you look at Hawaii and it being an occupied territory, and the violence that the native population of Hawaii has faced because of that occupation. A lot of the locals aren't able to live where they used to live. There was that terrible fire. There's a lot of conspiracies that it was started on purpose because there was developers who wanted it. And now they're the ones who are going to be able to purchase it and develop now. When you look at Puerto Rico, there's all of these things that were right in front of our faces, but the way that it was explained to us was different. And then you look at how the United States became the United States. It was kind of an occupied territory, and then you have control of it. There's a show right now that kind of demonstrates this. Shogun. Really great writing.
Yes.
Love the storytelling.
I've seen a couple episodes. Yes. I've heard it is one of the best. Why has it been cancelled?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it has been cancelled, but it is supposed to be one of the best.
Maybe because it highlights this.
Oh my god,
yes,
it's really
like
cold.
60-something degrees outside.
Wow, is it? Okay, I'll change the temperature in the house. But keep going.
But it starts to really highlight how sinister the imperialism was, right? So I don't really want to give you guys any spoilers, but there ends up being an exchange of information that highlights, well, there was this legal documents made between these two countries that your land is their land. Everything on this side is theirs and everything on that side is, and this is the global understanding. They don't care how you feel about it. We're here tricking you into thinking that you have some level of control of your land, but we're infiltrating and taking over. And it showed that through Christianity.
They did. They used religion.
Yes. And it was very very specifically Christianity. And you will see that here. That's why we had missions in churches all over Mexico. That really is like a deep wound that they're still dealing with the effects of generationally. Because of the way it took spirituality from people, right? It took all of, and you saw that here with residential schools for the indigenous populations. They want to strip you of your cultural knowledge, right? And sadly, it had detrimental effects to our environments because a lot of the spiritual teachings of an area into an indigenous population include the land that's there, includes intelligence that they've gathered, data that they've gathered from the plants that grow, the medicines, the seasons, what grows and what doesn't grow. And we didn't understand the effects of invasive species. So there's a lot that, in hindsight, has been really damaging and really violent across the board. And I think that a large part of the population is just coming to terms with, damn, this has been going on the entire time. I've been so blind or so ignorant or so consumed, and not to carry that because it's not your fault.
But you can hold on to some level of responsibility in doing a little better as individual and in your community.
And that was the thing, and that's something that I constantly reiterate to people around me is just because that's what you're told doesn't make it true. Always ask questions. Always go find, I just maybe try to go lay eyes on the truth yourself. Get a hold of where that comes from. Really question about who benefits from you believing this particular story. And that can also in and of itself be really overwhelming. So you're not going to be perfect every day. And I think that was something that this book that I'm reading this week is the Abolitionist Handbook. It is 12 Steps to Changing Yourself and the World by Patrice Cullors. In the first few pages, go check it out at your local library or buy it at your local bookstores.
Can I read the thing in the back? In an abolitionist handbook, readers will learn how to have courageous conversations, commit to response versus reaction, experiment because nothing is fixed, say yes to imagination, forgive actively versus passively, allow oneself to feel, commit to not harming or abusing others. Others includes other living things too. Okay, practice accountability for harm caused. Just talked about this, right? Embrace non-reformist reforms, build community, value interpersonal relationships, fight the state rather than making it stronger. No, this is hopefully, you're reading it from a library. Okay. This is incredible.
I'm really excited about this. Is my second work reading abolitionist literature. You have my other book, We Do This Till We Free Us. But what I really enjoyed about in these first couple pages even, it has the 12 steps listed and it highlights here.
I saw it somewhere listing the 12 steps.
Yes, it has it. But before we get there, I just want to highlight this is pertaining to current events right now. And this book wasn't published recently. It's been around. It says in both 1899 and 1907, world leaders met in The Hague in the Netherlands to negotiate a series of treaties and to decide what actions would be labeled war crimes. These meetings became known as the Hague Conventions. The agreement banned things like planning a war or an atrocity while under a peace treaty, murder or ill treatment of prisoners of war, murder of hostages, torture or inhumane treatment, destruction of cities, towns, and villages, devastation not justified. Also, these actions against civilians were banned. Murder, extermination, enslavement, deportation, and mass systemic rape. And it was decided that individuals could be held criminally responsible for the actions of a country or its soldiers. Although the people who win the war are not generally ever tried for their war crimes. Vietnam is a notable exception, as Americans were tried and committed in the United States. But what we also understand is that we have such a militaristic history in the United States.
In the world.
Well, yes. Okay, so listen. When was Pearl Harbor?
1940 something.
After the Hague Conventions. Right?
I mean, US is one of the very few who have not signed certain treaties on purpose, right? One of those is the landmines thing. Oh. They're like everybody else that have been part of removing the landmines. US claims, no, we have landmines to protect certain places and therefore will not sign. And being economic superpower, being military superpower, being in a place where you think you hold the moral high ground is it should come with tremendous responsibility, and this is not by any means easy.
No,
it's not easy at all, but we cannot not continue to question these things. I mean, fear has ridden us already to all these places now, that, you know, open communication and conversation which is why I love social media. Yes, it has ill-informed misinformation out there, no question about it.
Right.
But excuse me, that happened even before. You know, the books that get published, the papers that get published, are the voices that were allowed to be published. How many books and papers and publications were burnt?
There are some that I've read that were published because I love old books, but sometimes you'll read them and your skin will crawl because of how wrong something was. And I think that pertains to like forgive actively because like we didn't maybe know better. But it's because of who was allowed in the room. When you look at the history of gynecology, okay, and
I can't even imagine. I don't know, but I can't even imagine.
You don't know, and it's really, really, really atrocious. Like beyond that word, it was supremely violent and mostly on Black women bodies is when it started, and it was enslaved bodies, so they didn't have the choice to be there. They didn't consent to it. They weren't using anesthetics because of the beliefs at the time were that Black women, and even still today, it's still like a very big part of the United States medical system where they don't listen to Black women about their pain. We recently lost someone who dismissed a tumor and said it was a fibroid, and it ended up being cancer, and she died because of this misdiagnosis, like in the last week.
Oh my.
Okay, and we're seeing, you know, birth deaths, you know, birth-related deaths, I should say. I'm not getting that terminology right now, but especially for Black women is so much higher. Serena Williams, they didn't listen to her.
Yeah.
You know, and so when we really have to start to look at those things, right? Especially when the people need the power. And we need to be invested in these kinds of decisions more so than like, I'm going to vote for this person, you know, because they're in this party and that's why I've always voted. And even look at our bipartisan system and realize that maybe they're not doing things in the best interest of the people. And going again, referencing this book, is when it says embracing people who are non-reformists, because it would be so, like, you'd have to break the whole system down to fix it, right? So sometimes, even right now, I'm having an appliance replaced in my home because it would cost more to fix it than it would be to replace it.
Yes.
That's what that means.
Yes.
We're not going to see reform happen effectively.
Yeah.
Because these people don't want to give up their power. Just like the United States doesn't want to give up its power. It doesn't want to share the equality.
Totally.
Right?
And, you know, a little bit more, let's add some dimensionality to this on you not wanting to give up power also comes from a place of arrogance of I am better off being in power than you are.
Right. Or
right?
Fear of retaliation for all of the things that have been going
on. 100%. The examples of black women not being heard. It how often, ask yourself of yourself, okay? How often do you feel you know better than the other person? As a male, how often do you feel you are a better person than the female in the room? Why, therefore, you should ask yourself, so many politicians, so many people in control, so many people who are working in our financial institutions, in our corporate entities are male.
Absolutely.
Right? Male, this is not just starting with the adults, okay? It actually starts, we will always come back to parenting.
Absolutely.
It starts with at the fundamental level on how you raise your children.
Yes.
If adults start with saying, we know better than you, and we don't take into consideration how the child's needs, thoughts, for them what is important, are not even heard and are dismissed and diminished, it builds up, and it is even more so done to the females than the males.
Absolutely.
Right? That carries on in adulthood. Now you add color to it. You add class to it. You add economic power to it. You add education to it, literacy to it. Then you're like, I am more educated than you. I know what I'm speaking about.
And like, do you even have a degree?
Yeah.
And we've used that to be exclusionary on purpose. So
yes.
Look at academia, and that's what it is. It's a lot of different kinds of gatekeeping.
Yes.
Right? And you see it really, it's so exquisitely, and it's not even funny. I have to tell you, I did not know Greg Abbott was in a wheelchair until very recently. In the last year, this was new information to me. To see the policies and the way that he litigates from a wheelchair is antithetical to his condition. When we look at disabilities and people who need accommodations, I want to move away from using that ableist term because people are
quite able even when
yes.
they are physically handicapped in some form.
Yes. They just need different accommodations.
Correct.
Access to those accommodations are a part of living in an equitable society. It shouldn't be something that only the very, very resource-rich people have access to.
It's not, yes, you're 100% right. It's resource-rich, right? It is also coming from a place of you not knowing enough information to solve for the things you don't know about. Have someone who is physically divergent, right? If you have some form of physical deviation, okay? Previously we might call it handicap, disabled,
yes.
What are those things? Have them design homes. It will accommodate for the able,
yes,
as well as those unable to perform the same ways that the able to, right? It will not have discriminatory elements.
Right.
You will have cabinets where you can reach for a toilet paper and replace it next to your toilet far better than for a standing person.
Yes.
We don't think about it because what you don't experience, you are very, very difficult to have empathy over.
Absolutely.
So you got to work extra hard. And guess what? When you recognize that in yourself, and let's first work on recognizing that because that's privilege. The ability for me to be able to see, to walk, all of these things, privilege. We have to not say, let me find out a way to accommodate those who are, not aspirant. Include them.
Yes, and it takes the people already being there to advocate for their presence, to start to acknowledge the absence of that perspective in a room.
Correct.
Right? Because it has to be someone realizing it, because someone who's already there. If you have the platform, if you have the privilege, it is your responsibility to pull in the people who aren't being heard, who aren't being seen.
100%.
Because life's already hard enough.
Yes.
And if you're being excluded, chances are there's a reason. And until you bring up that very apparent and very dense, I don't want to say dense, it's just a really big deal that there are people who are being left out on purpose. And it's an uncomfortable conversation to have. Sometimes they will look at you like you're being difficult, or you're being overly sensitive, or you're being illogical. That's important.
So the part where we have to, as individuals who are placed in positions of solutioning, should first and foremost bring people in to understand the problem better, let alone not be alone in solutioning. Okay, don't bring in people and say, okay, here's the problem, what do you think about the solution, can you participate in the solution? We might not even understand the problem fully. Going back to some of these examples, and we're going to take some deep examples. Okay, let's talk about the examples of what's happening in the Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, Gaza, Palestine. How often, not the leaders in those places who have lots of security protecting them, which I'm not disagreeing, sort of to make changes you need, right? But can we please find a way to include people on the ground? Right? If you sit and talk to grandmas and grandpas, and you sit and talk to children, you bring them in to be part of the voice of what their problem is. Not send a reporter to just find, because not saying as reporters, you guys are not doing incredible job. Some of you going into tough situations to find and capture these stories. But what you are seeing is a surface level elements.
Right.
Sitting them down and having them part of, are we seeing the problem the same way you are seeing?
Right, and I think that's where you start to risk your solution being like an idea.
Correct.
Right, and solving it from an idealist perspective versus a realist, right? And I think that's where you make that connection, right? Because we can conceive an idea and still be off base.
Yes.
We can conceive an idea, but we're not addressing it from the ground up.
Yes.
And that's where you start to have really unstable foundations. They say you can't build a house on sand,
for a reason.
Right. Or it has to be, you'll be able to take it down real easy and put it back up.
Huff and puff.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to encourage you right now, and this is something we're going to reiterate all the time, is in order for you to be able to show up and to be effective and to have difficult conversations and to build interpersonal relationships and to start creating, a community, and to have these pillars, right, in our society that are receptive and willing, you have to take care of yourself. You have to listen to yourself. This is your immediate environment. And once you're able to take care of yourself, you're able to take care of others.
Totally. The understanding of a mind and the reasons you have the feelings and emotions you do, and the reasons why you take the actions you take. You can't have a feeling and an emotion, a feeling and an action without a thought. Thought comes first, right? You got to tolerate your thought. You got to understand why you have the thought, where it's coming from, all of that kind of stuff. That studies the psychology, right? Self-psychology, psychology of the human mind. What is happening in the society, what is happening in a situation, that is sociology.
Right.
Sociology, okay? One cannot exist without the other, because the psyche of a person is very much a product of the situation often they come from. It's not just the nature aspect of it, because if you, as nature aspect, is having certain parts in your body, but the moment you can start understanding body language, words, tensions, anxieties as a baby in a womb, you can feel the anxieties of the person carrying you, right, through it, right? the pumping of the blood, the emotions that are running, the
Right.
contractions
The
in your
hormones.
body, the hormones, the shifting of digestion, all of these things. That DNA is feeling it from the very, very, very get-go. And all of those things are not just the psyche and the psychology of it, it is also the sociology of it.
Absolutely.
And you cannot separate one versus the other.
Not at all. And I think that's something, I took a 4-year break from my personal Instagram. If you want to find me, I'm Low Illuminates.
And she just came back.
I did. I just reemerged. But reconnecting with some of the former writings and some of the things that I've been really passionate about taking a stand for. When you look at crime rates, when you look at domestic violence, when you look at the socioeconomic implications of where you see people incur the most violence, where you see people incur the most crime, you cannot separate that from the other, right?
Yeah.
I use the term a lot, you cannot separate individual wellness from the collective wellness. My ability to be well, I should also be making sure that people have access to that. And that's in the form of livable wages, access to housing. There's a really staggering statistic I read. I did not verify it. I know a lot of statistics are made up. But they said that you have to make 80% more in 2024 to be able to purchase a house than you were able to in 2020. In a 4-year span, an 80% jump in income, which is not happening. It cannot happen.
Yeah.
Right now, we are actually experiencing,
stagnation,
recession a little.
Recession,
Yeah.
and for those who have jobs, stagnation.
Yes.
For those who are losing jobs, I literally. So I went in today to teach a couple of Pilates classes as an emergency substitute, and one of the ladies was talking to me about what my primary job was. And she was telling me that she used to be in software sales and lost her job 8 months ago. She's been in software sales for 20 something years, right? She's been in sales for 20 something years. She's 54. And she was talking about the fact that, is my age so prominent on my face? So what it is? That is also wisdom.
Right.
Right? And she had to take several cutbacks to now be an analyst.
Yes.
Right? What people have to do to not be given the respect and opportunity for what they might bring to the table, right? It's a really, really tough environment out there right now.
Absolutely.
One we have created.
Absolutely.
One very much we have created. And
one we've allowed to continue to take place, though, because at the same time, while the people on the lower half don't have the power, there have been record profits. Huge.
I mean, the haves versus have-nots. Again, literally in the last few days, I was like Googling this and finding out what is the income level needed for a household to be considered top 1% by state in the US, okay? Guess which one is the highest to have your highest income level to be in the top 1%?
I don't know.
Do you think Texas? It's California, Texas, Seattle, New York? Which one do you think would be?
I feel like Seattle in my head and California are where you need the highest, but
to be in the top 1% of that state.
Yes.
It's actually Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow. Okay, I believe that. Yeah, District of Columbia.
That's where the politicians and the lawyers and the lobbyists are.
Absolutely.
And it's such a small place, and look at the differential between the haves and the have-nots there.
Yes.
Right? The rest of the people in that small little place, territory, are there to service the top 1%. It is $1 million plus in household income. If you have to earn to be in the top 1% in Washington, D.C.
I found out something really interesting that the 5 most affluent families in the country live in Texas. Tesla and SpaceX are here in Texas. Microsoft based here. Well, I guess it's in Seattle now too. But when you start to question why people with the most resources are operating out of Texas, you really need to start investigating why.
Yeah.
Because here in Texas as well, we have some of the most extreme disparities in income and access. We're seeing it right now in the Rio Grande Valley, and that's been historically speaking. Our border towns suffer. All of those areas are suffering, and there's even more violence there. So not only is there not a huge population in those areas, that means there's not a lot of witnesses.
Yes.
That means you have a lot of vigilantes that are misunderstanding what's actually happening. And we're really seeing the mistreatment. Texas just passed that law where they get to arrest and immediately deport migrants. And it's going to be sad, and it's going to be really ugly, and it's been really ugly. And so I just encourage you to educate yourself, find a different perspective, find a perspective that maybe directly conflicts with your own, and get to know it, because the broader the viewpoints we have, the more we're going to be able to find a solution that we all get comfortable with getting behind.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for that, because if radical change is going to happen, we have to start having the radical ideas here first, and because we have to know it.
100%. And we have to first and foremost watch for ourselves and our personal biases.
Absolutely. And that's why I want to encourage you, like, go listen to someone you don't agree with. Maybe not directly. Listen to a podcast. Watch a video.
Yes.
Because you have to know what the other side looks like.
Yes.
You have to know what the extreme opposition is saying in order to know how to reach them.
Yes.
And you have to be able to reach, which means you're going to have to lean out of your own space.
Yeah.
And it's that action and it's that intention that is really going to start from the ground up.
Yeah.
We have to talk to each other. We have to really be accountable to one another, and what we are, and being accountable is acknowledging our own participation, our own complicity.
And it starts with you tolerating your own other thoughts. Like, instead of being critical of a thought that you could possibly have, tolerating a thought internally, tolerating what you see external. We can't be self-observant if we are not observant of the outside.
Right.
And we have to tolerate that and understand why we are intolerant of that before we can go into acceptance and understanding. So
Truly.
this is a
Forgive actively.
forgive actively. Absolutely. This has been a very enriching conversation.
I'm really excited about this one. Thank you guys for being a part of it. Thank you. For,
Always.
showing up today, even after you had an unexpected fill-in,
And you were accommodating. Thank you for that. I mean, it's not every day we can be.
Right.
Today, we fortunately were accommodating of each other, accommodating of a emergency that happened somewhere else.
Right.
Our calendars, fortunately, allowed us to be.
Right.
But we didn't meet last week.
We didn't.
really wanted to hang out.
Little Pen, we uploaded 2 of our previous episodes that didn't make it onto our channel. So go check out The Promise of Spring. We recorded probably about a month ago.
Yes.
And The Resistance to Saying No, where we talk about different techniques we use to say no, the benefits of it, and sometimes our resistance around using it. And until next time, keep on showing up. That's all we can do. We have today, and we can make it happen. So,
Thank you
cheers.
so much.
So much love.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Boom.